Thank you. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Statutory Planning Committee meeting of the 4th of February 2026. The meeting is being live streamed and recorded and will be available for viewing via the Commission's website and YouTube. Committee members may refer to technical devices throughout the meeting to assist them in their deliberations. I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting on the lands of the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation and pay our respects to elders past and present. Apologies. Today we do have no apologies, but we do have Commissioner Lakey due to arrive around 9:30 a.m. Oh, sorry. Yes. Thank you, Sam. And we do have apologies from Member Moore. So Member Moore will not be attending today. In person today, we have myself, Commissioner Brooks, Member Harmon and Member Knight. And online, I welcome Member Franklin, Commissioner Adair and Commissioner Herron. I'll move on to disclosures of interest. We do have a few to go through today. In relation to item 3.1, amendments to Montario Quarter Design Guidelines for Shenton Park Hospital redevelopment, Commissioner Herron has declared a perceived impartiality interest in that he was involved with the development of the IPS and associated designs approximately 8 years ago and has no current direct interest in the proposal or the project. Members, with your consent, I'm happy to receive that as a perceived impartiality interest. Is there any concerns with that? Thank you. On the same item, Commissioner Lakey has declared an indirect pecuniary interest in that he is the chair of Foundation Housing, where Human Urban, who are the applicant for this item, are the development managers on a number of Foundation Housing social housing projects. On that basis, Commissioner Lakey has informed me he'll step out on the item. On the same item, Member Moore did make a declaration. She is not attending the meeting, but I will read it just for governance reasons. That Member Moore had advised that she recently discussed and provided heritage advice on proposed development of the site to the proponent and SPC in her role as a member of the Heritage Council. Member Moore would have stepped out on that item was she attending today. On item 4.1, the City of Perth Draft Local Planning Scheme number 3, Commissioner Herron has declared a perceived impartiality interest in that he was previously the presiding member of the City of Perth DAP, dealing with numerous applications within the city, and also that he acted for landowners within the city whilst working for his previous employer, Urbis. Commissioner Herron has no current interest, and the most recent engagement with the city was greater than 12 months ago with on an application. So on that basis, I'm happy to accept that as a perceived impartiality if that is supported by the committee. Any concerns? No, thank you very much. On the same item, Commissioner Adair has declared a perceived impartiality interest in that in 2020 and 2021, she was the General Manager of Planning and Economic Development at the City of Perth. Commissioner Adair has had no contact with the city since that time and no ongoing involvement. Commissioner Adair, just in relation to any involvement in the development of the draft local planning scheme, is that something that you worked on whilst you were at the city?
It was very, very preliminary work at that time. The work that was being done at that stage was more on the strategy rather than the scheme itself.
Thank you, Commissioner Adair. On that basis, I would be happy to accept this as a perceived impartiality if that's supported by the committee. Yeah. Any concerns? Okay, thank you very much. On the same item, Commissioner Brooks has declared a perceived impartiality interest in that Commissioner Brooks was advised that her employer, Urbaqua, was previously appointed by the City of Perth to prepare a water management strategy for the UWA QE2 Specialised Precinct. The project was abandoned in 2024 prior to the improvement plan initiation, and Urbaqua have not been appointed in any ongoing capacity. Probably also worth mentioning that the scheme does not make any changes to the UWA QE2 precinct and that will be dealt with through the improvement plan and scheme process. Is there any issues from members in relation to Commissioner Brooks's perceived impartiality interest? No, thank you, we accept that. On the item 4.3, the City of Busselton Local Planning Scheme number 21, Amendment 61, Member Knight has declared a perceived impartiality interest in that her family owns a property within the city of Busselton but outside of the proposed amendment. Thank you. I'm happy to accept that as perceived, as everybody else is. Thank you very much. And on item 4.4, the Shire of Murray Local Planning Scheme number 4, amendment number 322, Member Harmon has declared a direct pecuniary interest in that Member Harmon is employed by a Satterley Property Group who is investigating a land purchase impacted by the amendment. Understand you'll step out on that item?
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you very much, Member Harmon. And that is all I have recorded. Are there any other disclosures of interest? Yes. Thank you very much. An application for leave, 20th of. Thank you very much for tabling that. I'll then move on to disclosures of representation. I would like to make a disclosure in relation to item 4.1, the City of Perth scheme, in that I met with the City of Perth last week and they did provide me with a presentation, which I have circulated to members through the members' library for information. That is acting in the normal course of my duties as chair, and I have not had any information that has not been provided to members today. Are there any other disclosures of representation? No, thank you very much. Declaration of due consideration. Can all members please indicate that they've received and considered the agenda ahead of today's meeting? Thank you all. And confirmation of minutes for the Wednesday, 21st of January meeting. Members, any comments or queries in relation to the minutes? Thank you very much. If I could have a mover and seconder to adopt the minutes. Thank you. Moved by Member Harmon, seconded by Member Knight. Any dissent? Thank you. They are carried. So we'll now go to deputations and presentations, and I will hand over to you, Sam. Thank you.
Good morning to everyone that's present either in person or online today to deliver a deputation to the Statutory Planning Committee. You will either be invited to join the table or promoted to a panelist via Zoom to deliver your deputation this morning. You have been advised of your allocated time, which will be managed by a timer which will appear on the screen and count down that allocated time. If you do have a PowerPoint presentation this morning, this will be displayed on the screen throughout your deputation and you're requested to advise as you wish to advance the slides. Moving to the first deputation on the agenda this morning, which is on item 3.1 on the agenda, amendments to Ontario Quarter Design Guidelines, Shenton Park Hospital redevelopment for approval. We're welcoming Alex Watson via Zoom this morning. Good morning, Alex.
Morning, Sam, and good morning, everyone. Thanks for your time.
Thanks.
Over to you when you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll fire away. Good morning to the Chair and the members. CLE acts for Human Urban on their Seymour project at Ontario Quarter, which will consist of 25 townhouses and 2 apartments on the site of the former Sir George Bedbrook Spinal Unit in Shenton Park. We're in favour of the officer recommendation that the proposed amendments to the Area A and Area B design guidelines be approved by the committee. The Human Urban proposal is led by a development application proposing the adaptation of the existing spinal unit building into 8 townhouses and 2 apartments, with a further 17 townhouses to be developed by others in accordance with the Area B design guidelines. Freehold lots for all 25 townhouses and the 2 apartments are proposed through a subdivision application that has been assessed concurrently. The subdivision and development approvals are now, to our understanding, ready to be issued, with all discussion points on both applications resolved before Christmas. The subdivision and development applications contextualise the design guidelines amendments, with the amendments being a related and logical change aimed at bringing the planning framework into alignment. The project team considered that there was in fact scope for the amendments to be considered administrative and therefore approvable under delegation. Although DPLH agreed that the amendments were minor, it did not agree that they were administrative. Approvals for the subdivision and development applications were therefore held to enable today's presentation of the amendments to the SPC. One question arising from any proposal to transition an apartment site into a predominantly townhouse site is the impact on dwelling yield. The officer's report addresses this matter in detail, and we would add that with its R60 coding, the subject site does not offer the same yield potential as the rest of the Area A design guidelines area, most of which is coded R160. And as such, the yield impact of the change is not as significant as it could have been in a higher coded area. As noted in the officer report, the fall in yield potential is 13 dwellings in the context of a precinct with a yield target of 1,100. As noted in the officer report, this target is on track to be exceeded by virtue of a higher than expected delivery of yield on sites already completed and approved. To conclude, this amendment to the design guidelines of Ontario Quarter will ensure that the planning framework remains fit for purpose following the related approval of lots, townhouses and apartments. We look forward to the committee's favourable consideration. As a final point, I've been advised that DPLH would prefer not to issue the development and subdivision approvals until the minutes from today's meeting are confirmed, which generally takes a week. We would like to request that the committee authorise DPLH issuing the approvals immediately, as the alternative would create an additional delay, which is unnecessary. My client is motivated and wishes to proceed as soon as possible. Thanks for your time and happy to take any questions if there's any from the members.
Thank you very much, Alex. It's Emma Cole, Chair, talking to you now. I will now open up to members for any questions. Thank you, Commissioner Brooks.
Hi, Alex. I just wanted to check that there is a difference between the provisions for drainage associated with the single lot development versus the apartment lot. Has that been accounted for in the work that you've done so far, or I suppose through the subdivision process? I'm assuming that there'll be a water management plan. Has that work commenced?
Thanks, Commissioner. Yes, the development application and the subdivision application both handle stormwater management in the context of the planning framework, and there'll be a condition relating to that on the subdivision approval as well.
And you're satisfied that you'll be able to accommodate the drainage requirements, the different drainage?
Yes, yeah, we are. Yep.
Thank you.
Members, any other questions? Thank you, Commissioner Heron.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, I just wondered if you could speak, Alex, to obviously the yield is a significant matter in relation to the changes, but the heritage implications are also the other key component in terms of obviously the change that's occurred to that. Are you able to speak to the heritage components which are being retained in terms of the underlying intent that sits behind that?
Thanks, Commissioner. Yes, I can. The spinal unit obviously dates to the late 50s, early 60s, and was, I think, the first purpose-built spinal rehabilitation facility in at least the Southern Hemisphere, if not elsewhere. So quite socially significant, culturally significant, and significant for the industry. The Heritage Council has been engaged for the past 12 months or so by Human Urban in respect of the adaptation of the building. And I suppose the important thing to note is that regardless of the development outcome, whether it's apartments or townhouses, the building would obviously need to be adapted in some way. So what we've proposed is a more townhouse-led adaptation of the building as opposed to an apartment-led adaptation. There are still 2 apartments leaving the eastern portion of the building intact, but both those concepts adapt sort of cues from the design of the original building and seek to represent its form and obviously tell the story of the activities that were conducted there over a sort of 60-year period. So I guess the key message is that we've engaged with Heritage Council throughout, and their response, it's been a process. Their response has always been very open-minded, and Human Urban, through the architects, have made a number of design refinements aimed at ensuring that representation of the built form is respectful. So yeah, we're quite comfortable in terms of where that's at, and the Heritage Council has expressed its support through the subdivision and development applications.
Thank you. Any further questions for Alex? Alex, thank you. Also, just noting your comment in relation to the minutes, we will look into that further following the meeting.
Okay, thank you for that consideration.
Thank you. Thank you for your deputation today.
Thanks for your time. Cheers.
The next deputation this morning is on item 4.1, which is the City of Perth Draft Local Planning Scheme number 3 for approval to advertise, and we're welcoming Dan Lees. via Zoom. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning, Sam.
Your PowerPoint presentation is just loading, and then over to you when you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair and committee members. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you. I am here on behalf of two property owners, being GDI Property Group, the owner of 197 St George's Terrace, and Hawaiian, the managing entity of 78 Mounts Bay Road, Perth. We are broadly in support of the draft City of Perth Local Planning Scheme 3 and recognise that this is an important milestone in progressing this draft scheme towards public advertising and eventual determination. There is, however, one key modification that we say ought to be made on both orderly and proper planning grounds, but also so as to appropriately reflect the desired intensity of development in our capital city. Next slide, please. Specifically, I am speaking to the proposal to curtail the plot ratio of these properties and others stemming from the Parliament House precinct. The Parliament House precinct is not a state planning policy, but a planning bulletin that was prepared in 1983. In terms of orderly and proper planning, I would respectfully suggest that a local planning scheme should not be subservient to a very low order planning document, such as the Parliament House precinct planning bulletin. In simple terms, this bulletin seeks to control building height on surrounding sites within a view corridor of Parliament House, with it designating sites either within the inner precinct or the outer precinct. Both 197 St George's Terrace and 78 Mounts Bay Road are in the outer precinct. In response to the planning bulletin, the plot ratio maps of draft Local Planning Scheme 3 show reduced plot ratio entitlements within the precinct. No such plot ratio reduction applies under the city's current planning scheme. Next slide, please. On screen here for 197 St George's Terrace, you can see the proposed plot ratio of 11:1 for the majority of the property, and the properties generally along St George's Terrace, shown in red on the map on the left-hand side. However, the southernmost tip of the property is proposed to have a reduced plot ratio of 7.5, shown in dark blue. The reason for this is the Parliament House precinct planning bulletin. This also affects the bonus plot ratio plan, with the southern tip of the property not entitled to bonus plot ratio at all, whereas the surrounding sites are entitled to a bonus of up to 4, shown in purple on the right-hand side. Next slide, please. This same issue is raised with respect to 78 Mounts Bay Road. As you can see here, much of this property is curtailed to a reduced plot ratio of 7.5 and with no eligibility for bonus plot ratio for the majority of the site. Our request is simply that these plot ratio maps are updated so that the entirety of these properties have a plot ratio of 11 and a bonus plot ratio of 4. Next slide, please. Respectfully, the utility of the Parliament House precinct planning bulletin ought to be reviewed to determine whether this is still performing a proper planning purpose in 2026, noting this was prepared in 1983. I make this comment in the context of the history of development approvals that have been issued on 197 St George's Terrace and other properties affected by the bulletin, where significant height variations have been granted. It should also be recognised that the WA Planning Commission has a development approval role here, as the Parliament House precinct is a Clause 28 area under the Metropolitan Region Scheme. And in this regard, the Commission has previously supported development applications where significant height variations from the planning bulletin have been proposed in the order of 139 metres and approved by the Development Assessment Panel. Next slide, please. This question as to the appropriateness of the planning bulletin appears to have been contemplated previously by the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage officers, as noted in this extract from a responsible authority report prepared on behalf of the Commission. The comment that I have bolded there specifically recognises the contemporary nature of the city's current planning scheme when considered against the 1983 planning bulletin. Next slide, please. And again here, this is an extract from that same responsible authority report. And respectfully, if the 1983 Parliament House precinct planning bulletin is no longer serving a contemporary planning purpose, which seems to be the contemplation here, then the city's new planning scheme in 2026 should not be subservient to it. Next slide, please. In closing, this submission speaks to the orderly and proper hierarchy of planning documents within the framework. This is also about ensuring that the city's new planning scheme is established on a solid basis so as to accommodate the growth and intensification of our capital city, as has been appropriately envisaged for it by the Commission's endorsement of the city's local planning strategy in 2023. The strategy specifically highlights areas of the city that it calls plot ratio intensification investigation areas, which is what this strategy map extract is showing here with the purple colour. This map identifies both of these properties for targeted plot ratio uplift in the core of our capital city. In closing, the opportunity to review and contemporise our capital city planning scheme does not present itself every day, and this would represent, respectfully, a missed opportunity if the city's local planning scheme number 3 was subject to reduced plot ratios as a response to a planning document from 1983 that has been consistently departed from. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Dan. It's Emma Cole speaking to you. I will now see whether there are any questions of you from members. No? Oh, yes, go ahead, Commissioner Heron.
Thank you. Dan, can I ask, I mean, obviously this is a matter that could also be dealt with during the advertising and engagement period. Is there a reason, I suppose, why you were looking to do that? And I'm assuming that the changes that you'd be seeking would not just be on those portions that you identify, would have to be then consistently across all those adjoining properties. Has there been any discussion with those other owners? Has there been any discussion with the City of Perth prior to this?
Thank you for the question, Commissioner Heron. I might answer the second part of your question first. No, I have not had any direct contact with other property owners. My clients may have, but yes, I would entirely agree that it would be appropriate for not just these 2 properties, but the affected properties to also receive the same plot ratio should the maps be redrafted for consistent plot ratios. I think that would be entirely appropriate. I have discussed this matter some time ago with the City of Perth, preliminary discussions with the officers, noting this draft scheme went through council some time ago. So yes, I have had some contact with the city to flag this concern. With respect to the first part of your question, look, this is just the first opportunity to flag this concern with the Commission as part of this important milestone. Would certainly not want to be delaying the advertising of this draft scheme. This has been some time in the works, so we are very keen to see this proceed to advertising, but this is just about flagging this concern at the earliest opportunity, putting it on the public record, and we would fully intend to continue to press this point through public advertising and further decision-making and engagement opportunities.
Thank you. Are there any further questions for Dan? Thank you, Dan, for your deputation today, and you have well and truly tabled the issue, so thank you.
Thank you very much.
The next deputation this morning, also on item 4.1, we're welcoming Kylie Schoonens.
Sorry.
Kylie.
Good morning. Yes. Hello. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Oh, we can. We can't see you on our
Wait. Let me
screen.
turn on the video.
There we go. We can see and hear you now. Thanks very much.
It's down
and
there.
and welcome to the meeting this morning, Kylie. Your
Good morning,
PowerPoint
everyone.
presentation has been loaded, so over to you when you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Chair and Commissioners, for the opportunity to address you. We also support the advertising of the City of Perth Town Planning Scheme. We recognise that there has been a significant amount of work done on this scheme to date, and we welcome its advertising. However, we wanted to raise with you, as we have raised with the city, some concerns about some unintended consequences arising from the proposed changes relating to the plot ratio definition, which we believe will undermine the scheme's objectives for particular housing typologies across the city, particularly relating to special residential, or what is deemed special residential under the current scheme. And I believe we'll be looking to change some of those definitions in the future. But anything to do with student accommodation, co-living, hotels, any typology that is focused on affordable living, which has a higher ratio of wet areas to apartment, we believe will be impacted. The city has advised that DPLH requested alignment of the TPS3 plot ratio definition to be aligned with the R codes and Design WA definitions. Whilst we understand that consistency is, it is understandable in principle, our analysis has shown that even with the plot ratio increases being proposed across the city, the new calculation method results in a net reduction in achievable yield on many city sites in comparison to current LPS2 definition. We've provided the comparison report, which you can see here, for 2 live City of Perth projects. This was completed back in 2024 when the scheme was first put up to the City of Perth, and we reviewed the agenda back then. So if you just go to the next screen, probably flick through to, because that's obviously the definitions of the City of Perth versus Design WA. But what you can see here is an analysis of the one of our current projects that is under construction at the moment. It's for 609 Wellington Street, and it's a purpose-built student accommodation. The proposed TPS3 definition results in the loss. If we were to design and submit the exact same building today, or sorry, to when the new town planning scheme is initiated, it would result in a loss of between 4 to 8 levels and up to 216 student beds. Importantly, the PBSA and hotel uses currently do not sit within the R code framework and assessed on a gross floor area. And if it is assumed under a gross floor area basis as well, it would actually mean that it would be sitting as an increased yield loss than what is currently considered. If you flick to the next screen, 108 Sterling Street, which is a DA that we have received for a co-living project. The result would be a loss of 4 levels and 36 apartments, despite applying a bonus plot ratio. In addition to this, the car parking would be considered as a part of the plot ratio, as well as the full residential apartment. So we believe that this would fundamentally impact any project feasibility, particularly if developers are looking to have to force to put car parking underground, because we all recognise the significant additional cost that car parking below ground is causing for projects, and particularly looking at trying to create more affordable housing across our city. So whilst we recognise that TPS3 is promoted as enabling significant residential growth, we believe that the revised plot ratio definition makes this outcome unlikely in many types of special residential projects, which would potentially look for developers to have to look for additional bonuses, or taking it out of the city's planning pathway and into other pathways such as significant development. Our recommendation would be to retain the current plot ratio definitions that are contained within TPS2 and incorporate those into TPS3 to avoid these unintended consequences in the new scheme.
Thank you very much for your deputation today, Kylie. It's Emma Cole talking to you now, and I
Hello,
will
Emma.
just see whether there are any questions for you today.
Sure.
Any questions? Kylie, probably just worth saying that we do understand the issue that you're raising today, and it is a key consideration for the SPC's consideration. So we
Great.
do acknowledge the issue that you're raising.
Thank you very much, Emma.
Thank you.
The next deputation this morning, also on item 4.1 on the agenda, we're inviting Robert Farley, Maria Cook and Janine Sparling. If you'd like to join us at the table, thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for the
Welcome.
opportunity to speak to you today. In the interest of time, we'll just have the one speaker, but we're all here to answer any questions that may come forward. So thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you, Chair. And look, the City does welcome the committee's consideration of LPS 3, and we would like to acknowledge the work of the department in bringing this forward for your consideration. The scheme is the culmination of significant research and analysis, ensuring that the City has a planning framework that is robust and flexible to guide the next period of growth of our capital city. It aligns with the endorsed local planning strategy and allows for significant residential and employment growth. Wherever possible, the City has sought to align with the model provisions and the technical advice provided by the department. An important element of planning in the capital city is the use of plot ratio. A significant change in this draft scheme is how it is calculated. The City has incorporated a minimum of 20% increase to account for the change. The scheme not only delivers sufficient capacity to meet future growth, but provides for significant uplifts of plot ratio in key unconstrained areas. The impact of the change on plot ratio definition for student accommodation is acknowledged. The City supports the solution put forward by the department. The City supports the department's desire to implement greater consistency across local planning schemes and has sought to align wherever possible. However, model provisions should not be applied so rigidly to preclude alternative approaches, especially where they identified endorsed local planning strategy. The nature of planning is that there are always exceptions to the rule. In the capital city, it is considered some variation can be accommodated without creating an undesirable precedent. The City does not support the combining of the capital city office, capital city retail, and entertainment zones into one centre zone. The City's strategy clearly acknowledges the differences between these three areas, and the scheme seeks to now put these into effect. While the incorporation of different planning objectives for each area is acknowledged, the nuances, land use permissibility across the three areas has been removed, which could have the unintended consequence of undermining the objectives. Northbridge, City of Perth has proposed an entertainment zone for the core of the Northbridge Special Entertainment Precinct. The Minister's recent decision on Amendment 41 acknowledges the use of this, creating the state's first special entertainment precinct. Creating an entertainment zone better reflects the unique characteristics of this area and improves communication on the planning direction, while also simplifying the usability of the scheme. So in conclusion, the City of Perth has worked diligently to put into effect its approved local planning strategy and to align with the model provisions. It would welcome the committee's consideration of the unique planning circumstances that exist within the capital city and support for the modest variations to the model provisions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rob, Maria, and Janine, for joining us today. Members, are there any questions for the City of Perth? Questions? Probably then just on the deputation that we have heard, I just wanted to give you the opportunity if you would like to respond to the matter of the Parliament House view corridor. Or, you know, it obviously as Commissioner Heron has raised, this could be fleshed out during advertising, but if you have any comments today, please feel free.
Thank you, Chair. That matter was raised with us. We have then undertaken modelling in our ArcGIS system to see whether that can be accommodated. We believe that can be accommodated. We articulated that to the department previously.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, just checking. Hi, welcome. Commissioner Lakey's joined us. I'll go to Member Franklin, who has a question. Just on the City of Perth scheme, Paul, just on the deputation.
Through the chair, thank you, Rob, for your presentation today on this important scheme that's obviously taken a long time to go through its various stages. I just wanted to sort of, because the strategy has preceded the scheme, just how the city will be in its consultation on the scheme, how will the strategy be conveyed, and will that form part of the consultation period, knowing that that there is quite a link between the strategy and the scheme in how it's evolved.
Through the chair, we actually have a stakeholder engagement plan and a communications action plan at the City of Perth to ensure that we have a very clear, good communication and engagement. We are very conscious of always have your why, but why, what and how we are now just putting into a place. So totally agree that we need to ensure that that's communicated as to how did we arrive at that requirement. And we are fortunate to have a very good strategy that provides a clear line of sight between strategy into scheme. In our stakeholder during our 90-day consultation period, there will be information sessions across weekends and at night as well. That will also enable, because I don't think it's always just about the words, it's about the face-to-face. So we're going to make sure that there's lots of opportunity for all our stakeholders to engage with planning officers as well, to understand what it means for their properties.
Okay, thank you very much.
If I could also just add to that, through the chair, the other part of the city's, I guess, review is not only been the scheme, in preparing the scheme, but in reviewing the many, many policies that sit with the scheme. So in understanding how it's all going to work, the engagement with our stakeholders and our community will involve taking them through how that package works. So strategy, scheme and policies, because they work hand in hand, as you can understand. So that's going to be quite a comprehensive exercise.
If I'd add, we've done 3D modelling of the entire city so that people can understand. Planning can be quite a dry subject sometimes when you're looking at planning policies. So we have taken all our character areas, our heritage areas, and all the plot ratio across the entire city and the built forms, and now put that into 3D videos. We're also creating a Planning 101 video that actually explains how plot ratio works in a notional built environment as well. So we're trying to up knowledge the community and understanding the context of planning in Perth as well. And I think our planning videos will greatly assist for people to understand the basics of, but what does it mean?
That's excellent, Rob. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to Commissioner Heron now. Thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair, and thank you for the deputation. And Rob, how can planning be anything but purely exciting in my view? But anyway, the
You've got the wrong audience here, Rob, for that.
But a key item of difference between the department and the cities in relation to the centre components and the division of the centre zone into three. And I would appreciate getting a bit more insight in terms of the rationale or drivers from the city's perspective in terms of having that division. In particular, given that the very nature of activity in the city is increasingly mixed, that is, you do have shops in the office precinct, and similarly, what was the rationale that the city had in terms of that division into the three centre precincts?
Through the chair, you'll find that for the majority, you'll find maybe 70% are similar. But there are those, and I said in my I've written supporting information about the nuances between these areas. And when you go through our scheme, which you would have with you, you can see that comes through quite clearly. But there are some distinct characters that make up those areas. When you think about the terrace or St. George's Terrace, maybe it's something that it is the centre of business. It is the place for, it's the bump factor. It is where we do office led. Doesn't mean it's not mixed use, but it's office led. Just like we have residential areas that are office rich. Just like in the malls, we have retail rich, but we also have other active uses in there. But you wouldn't necessarily be supporting light industrial, as an example, on the terrace. So why would you even suggest it as a possibility? Or bulky retail, which is what is being proposed. So in our strategy, it acknowledged that there were differences, and that's come through into our local planning policies, where we have a draft St. George's Terrace character area, because not only are there differences in the land use types, but there's also typology differences in terms of the built form as well. So I suppose that's why we call that the nuance. Now, we appreciate the state planning policy identifies Perth as an activity centre. We acknowledge that. And the MRS shows that. However, when you start drawing that down, it's just that there are some differences, and there are some things. It's not about whether it's a D use, where it's actually maybe not a permitted land use. And I would only draw on, as in my now written submission to the committee, is that we do need a level of consistency of application of nuance compared to other areas within the city that the department is pursuing. Janine, is there anything you want to add in terms of those differences?
What we do have is we have marked up the scheme to show those differences, so that you can see between the scheme that was proposed by the city and the changes that DPLH has proposed. We've shown the differences, so you can see where the X's apply under our approach in terms of the separate zones as opposed to the centre zone. So you can see those nuances that Rob refers to, specifically around particular land uses within those model provision tables. So we're happy to leave those with you. We've got a couple of copies through the chair, and you can work through those to run through them.
Thanks, Maria. Has that also been provided to, I'm assuming you've provided that to the officers through this process as well?
Not the current version, a previous version, but because we only got the latest round of changes last week, this was only done
Thank you.
this week. So we can provide that electronically.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions for the City of Perth? Yes, go ahead.
Chair, just picking up on one of the deputations in terms of the changes to how plot ratio has been calculated, and obviously the increase to maybe offset, is the city comfortable that there hasn't been a resulted sort of net loss in development potential across the city?
Through the chair, what we did was a modelling of every property across the city in our GIS, and then looked at what would be the consequences. So can I hand on heart say every property? I'll do that. That's why we've gone with 20%. Where we realised was that there are a lot of areas where we're actually way above, like we're going to 11 to 1 terrace, so it's irrelevant, that thing. It's only the areas where there is no net increase, if you like. And then you've got to take out of that is the heritage areas. So even at the heritage areas, our modelling shows how we could actually put height but to the rear of the heritage areas, but still retaining. So the more constrained areas, you might have that gets tighter. What we realised was that going through a consultation process enables you to, if you like, smoke out any specific examples so we can then respond. But to understand the circumstances of every built form of every property does become a bit difficult. And Rothy Lohman's point about hotels and especially about student accommodation, yes, we agree. There's a unintended consequence of that the amount of exceptions, exclusions that come with those unique things. Under the current scheme, a PBSA can be up to 55% or 45% would be an exclusion from the built form. That's massive. So I think what we've landed on with the department resolves that issue.
Thank you, members. Are there any further questions? Thank you. Rowan, would you mind just taking the copies of the City of Perth have produced in hard copies there? Thank you very much for your deputation today. I just want to acknowledge all of the work that has come before this and all that you lies ahead with what I'm sure will be an incredibly engaging 3 months of engagement on the scheme. And thank you for working with the officers so closely to get to this milestone point. Thank you for your deputation.
Deputation this morning is on item 4.2 on the agenda, which is the City of Nedlands Local Planning 3 of 14, and we're welcoming David and Sergio Famio.
Hi, everyone.
Good morning, David.
Yes, I'll just get video on.
Yep.
Hi.
Casey is sitting in our waiting room, but she's declined to be promoted to a panelist this morning, so I trust that she doesn't seek to participate in the meeting.
Right. Hey, I've got Casey and Sergio in the room with me. So,
all right, lovely.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks very much, David. Over to you when you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to the next slide first. Thank you, commissioners and committee members, for the opportunity to speak to you. The City of Nedlands Scheme Amendment 14 seeks to limit vehicle access on R60 corner lots on 3 streets within the Nedlands-Stirling Highway Activity Corridor. The affected streets run east-west, parallel with Stirling Highway. Our amendment addresses safety concerns resulting from a proliferation of driveways on the affected streets, whilst ensuring low impact to infill developments. Next slide, please. The city is seeking 4 or 5 driveways in seeing 4 or 5 driveways in locations where there would usually be 1 or none. Jenkins Avenue in particular hosts a safe active street funded by the Department of Transport. The driveway proliferation in this location caused a loss of verge space and reduction of on-street parking. What previously accommodated 4 public bays now accommodates 1. Noting in this image, the car on the left is parked in front of a driveway, clearly showing a legibility issue. Next slide, please. The city also hosts examples of development that do respect the street, such as the above. Locating a common driveway at the rear, or alternatively considering apartment development, results in greener verge areas, a more protected pedestrian environment, and no impact to any on-street parking. Next slide, please. The city does not believe that raising concerns about vehicle access during the subdivision referral stage, as would be the case with a policy, is sufficient enough for the Commission to enforce vehicle access off the side streets. A scheme requirement would give strength to the provision and ensure consistent implementation. Showing this as an additional requirement on the scheme map gives certainty and clarity to landowners and purchasers. Next slide, please. Considering the context of each road as east-west cycle and pedestrian routes, we see a clear benefit from reduction of crossovers. The routes form an important strategic link between the city and the western suburbs. Whilst Gordon Street and Edward Street are not safe active streets, installation would be appropriate because of their status as secondary routes in the city's long-term cycle network. Next slide, please. The amendment aims to protect existing civic infrastructure, on-street parking and passing bays on Jenkins Avenue, and the on-street parking on Edward Street. All 3 of the affected streets benefit from retention of verge area for street tree planting and retention. Next slide, please. The amendment is not a one-size-fits-all approach. Each affected lot has been carefully selected. Previously subdivided lots have been excluded. The city engaged an architect to test the amendment, ensuring that lots could continue to facilitate R60 development and comply with the existing precinct's local planning policy. The example at 81 Dalkeith Road shows 5 group dwellings on a 1,000 square metre lot, which is typical of the lot subject to the amendment. Next slide is my last. Precedence for requiring vehicle access off certain streets is well documented. It is commonly visible in structure plans, local development plans, and along certain roads where there is infrastructure that needs to be protected and safety preserved. I hope this information provides the department with reassurance that Scheme Amendment 14 is a well-considered planning instrument that will provide a wider public benefit. Thank you. Happy to take questions.
Thank you very much, David. We appreciate your deputation today. Members, are there questions for the City of Nedlands? David, just a question from Mel. I note you talked about engaging an architect. Was that lot by lot for all lots impacted by the proposed scheme amendment?
No, it was just one lot. However, the 1,000 square metre lots of that size and shape are fairly common along the each of the affected streets. So we felt that it's enough for the exercise.
Okay, and has the city beyond that looked at the implication of the scheme amendment on each of the lots? Are you satisfied that there are no adverse impacts on any of the lots captured by the proposed amendment?
We are satisfied. We have also informed the department that if they identified that there were lots where it maybe wouldn't be appropriate, we'd be willing to scale back. However, each of the lots on there are about 1,000 square metres, and they do have this same configuration of having a side street.
Okay, thank you, David. Any further questions for Nedlands? Thank you very much for your deputation today.
Thank you.
The next deputation this morning is on item 4.3 on the agenda, which is the City of Busselton Planning Scheme number 21, Amendment 61, and we're welcoming Joanna Wilson and Emma Craddock via Zoom this morning. Good morning, Joanna and Emma. If you can see and hear us, would you mind turning your audio and video on? You may participate in the meeting this morning. There we go. Thank you very much and welcome to the Statutory Planning Committee meeting this morning. Over to you when you're ready. Thank you. Sorry, the City button, we can't hear you. If you're talking, we're unable to hear you. Might just need to adjust your microphone. We're still not getting audio from you. No, we're still not getting any audio. We might move to the next deputation on the agenda, and I might call you in the meantime, City of Busselton, to see whether I can assist with your audio issue. So I'll just pop you back in the waiting room and we'll be back with you shortly.
Thanks, Sam.
So moving on now to the deputation at item 4.4 on the agenda, we've got on the Shire of Murray Local Planning Scheme number 4, amendment number 322, we're welcoming Joshua Carmody via Zoom this morning. Thanks. Good morning, Joshua.
Good morning.
Over to you when you're ready. Thank you.
All right. Excuse me. I act on behalf of the owners of the Pinjarra Junction Shopping Centre and the largest undeveloped commercial land holding in the Pinjarra Town Centre. Our clients are seeking to develop their vacant land holding with an Audi and a McDonald's restaurant, and that application is currently under assessment via the DAP pathway. My client supports the draft precinct structure plan in principle, but they strongly object to SA 322. In my written deputation, I've outlined material inconsistencies between the draft zoning table and state planning policies and WAPC guidelines. I drew attention to the proposed prohibition of fast food outlets with drive-through facilities in the centre zone. This restriction is inconsistent with SPP 4.2, which identifies fast food outlets with or without drive-through facilities as core activity centre land uses. It's also inconsistent with the WAPC's Consistent Local Planning Schemes report, which recommended that the use be permitted in the centre zone. The Shire maintains that drive-through facilities are inherently incompatible with activity centres. They're not the first to make this argument. The WAPC's consultation report, clearly highlights that a ban on fast food outlets with drive-through facilities was proposed in various submissions received. It was considered by the DPLH and rejected. Contrary to the Shire's position, fast food outlets with drive-through facilities are widely located in activity in town centres in accordance with SPP 4.2. This reflects the flexibility of fast food outlets in adapting to different urban contexts, including town centres. McDonald's has demonstrated this in Pinjarra with a bespoke main street design that sleeves the drive-through to the rear and provides an active street frontage. One DAP member described it as the best arrangement for a McDonald's on a main street that he'd seen. For some additional context, the Pinjarra Junction Shopping Centre was expanded in 2015 to create 3 new main street frontages, including one to Pinjarra Road with 3 commercial tenancies. Now, those Pinjarra Road tenancies have never been leased, and overall centre vacancy rates have ranged between 20 to 35% for the last 5 years. The proposed Audi and McDonald's development on Pinjarra Road is part of a deliberate strategy designed to drive activity and activate those existing tenancies to the benefit of the town centre, and more than 350 submissions were lodged in support of it. So this is not the time to restrict commercial land uses in the town centre. Probably, or perhaps around a third of the existing businesses along Pinjarra's main street would fall under the Shire's list of land uses that they're proposing to downgrade or prohibit under SA 322. To conclude, we request that the zoning table be amended to reflect the WAPC guidelines on land use permissibility, specifically by ensuring that fast food outlets with or without drive-through facilities remain a P use in the centre zone. Thank you.
Joshua, thank you, and we appreciate that you have provided a very thorough written element to this deputation as well. I will just see whether there are any questions for you from members. No, thank you. I think you have made your position clear. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving to the next deputation, also on item 4.4 this morning, we're welcoming Greg Delahunty via Zoom this morning. Morning, Greg.
Good morning, Chair and panel members. Apologies, I intended to be there in person this morning, but circumstances dictated that I could not be. But I do appreciate the opportunity to brief you on this very important proposal for the Pinjarra Activity Centre. First, I'd like to start off with thanking the DPLH officers for the collaboration on this project over the last year. While I haven't seen the report, I am confident, based on the discussions that we've had, that the recommendation in front of you will provide the appropriate outcome for the Pinjarra Town Centre. Amendment 322 translates over a decade of strategic planning and community engagement into a statutory framework that will influence how the Pinjarra town will operate over the years to come. Importantly, it provides the appropriate mechanism to implement the impending Pinjarra Precinct Structure Plan. Pinjarra is a secondary centre under the state's planning framework, and in response to that, the Shire has prepared an integrated planning framework that involves a district structure plan, a precinct structure plan, and Amendment 322 to guide the growth for Pinjarra. This amendment is the statutory backbone of the framework, and it provides distinct zones, clear zone objectives, and land use permissibility that ensures activity in Pinjarra is located in the appropriate locations. And importantly, that the town can function in a manner that protects the existing character and heritage of the town and its long-term viability. The amendment and the framework were extensively advertised, with over 200 submissions and survey responses received, and responses from the community were very clear. The importance of the existing heritage character of the town was a priority. Also, there was a desire for a walkable, pedestrian-orientated town centre with activated streets rather than vehicle-orientated development. One key matter that was raised during the advertising period was the appropriateness of drive-through fast food within the Pinjarra town. It is important to highlight that food outlets without a drive-through do remain a permitted use under Amendment 322, and this does meet the requirements of SPP 4.2. What we have drawn through the amendment is the distinction between food outlets with and without a drive-through. And this is clearly because of the different implications between the formats. Drive-through formats are incompatible with the outcome sought in a town centre, certainly for a pedestrian-focused Main Street outcome. And this distinction is recognised in DPLH's Consistent Planning Schemes report. And although it does recommend that they do become a permitted use in centres, that report has not found its way into the state planning framework with the guidance for local planning schemes document as it is intended. But that report does also recognise that there will be a process for variations from the model recommendations. And given the existing context with a heritage town like Pinjarra, the incompatibility of the drive-through format with Main Street planning outcomes, and the existing planning framework that's been in place for over 10 years that prohibits this form of development, there's sufficient rationale to support the Shire's proposal in this instance. And I must highlight that there is an abundance of land in the frame of the town that can accommodate drive-to and drive-through commercial in a more appropriate location. So in closing, I'll respectfully request that the committee support the Shire's proposal, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Greg, it's Emma Cole, Chair, speaking to you now. Thank you very much for your deputation today and the submission that has accompanied that. I will go to members to see if there are any questions for you. Members, any questions? Yes, Commissioner Heron.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, and thank you for your deputation, Greg. I would be interested, I mean, obviously I understand the points you make in relation to drive-through fast food. Can I ask consideration in terms of drive-through generally? Because obviously you've got drive-through bottle shops, you've got an increasing number of uses that have drive-through. Has there been consideration as to isolating that component in relation to other uses other than fast food?
Thank you for your question, Member Heron. Yes, that has been considered. What we did try to seek through this process was aligning the scheme provisions as close as possible to the model provisions prepared and also with the consistent planning scheme guidance doc. And at this moment, there is no specific land use consideration for drive-through bottle shops or any other sort of drive-through proposals. What we have picked up in the draft Pinjarra Precinct Structure Plan is that drive-through facilities will be prohibited under the provisions of that precinct structure plan. And that's because that was seen as a more appropriate mechanism where there wasn't a neat land use permissibility fit for the planning scheme. But it is certainly the intent that development and land uses within the Pinjarra Town Centre will really reinforce those planning objectives that underpin the framework.
Okay,
Thank
members,
you.
further? Greg, I assume you heard the deputation before you. I just wanted to see whether you wanted to make any comment. Pinjarra Junction Shopping Centre representatives have spoken about some of the issues they're experiencing with vacancies on the main street, and they see expanded commercial offering through things such as a drive-through fast food outlet would assist in having a bit of more of a commercial mix. Do you have anything you'd like to say in response to that point that was made?
Certainly. Thank you, Chair. So it is a key objective of the planning framework is to consolidate commercial activity within the core area, and a fast food outlet without a drive-through component still remains a permitted use. So if an operator wished to locate within that location, then yes, that would be completely consistent with the planning framework and also have those synergies with activating some of the existing vacancies within town. Unfortunately, the drive-through format is inconsistent with the planning objectives that the framework is trying to achieve. Drive-through formats prioritize vehicle movement. They've got large setbacks. They've got large queuing lanes, standalone signage, and normally the building typologies are very formulaic in terms of the standard operating requirements. So it is just difficult to envision how we can deliver on the framework objectives with that drive-through format. So given that the scheme is proposed to set up the high-level objectives and the land use permissibility, it was thought to be important to get those key statutory controls in place that ensures that the framework itself has the best opportunity to deliver it on its vision.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Anything further for the Shire? Okay, thank you very much for your deputation today.
Thank you very much.
We will now go back to the deputation on item 4.3 from the City of Busselton.
Good morning.
Good morning, City of Busselton. We can hear you now.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Over to you when you're ready to deliver your deputation. Thank you.
Morning. Thank you for the opportunity to make a deputation. Amendment number 61 is to implement the state government's planning reforms for short-term rental accommodation and also introduced a special control area which seeks to prohibit unhosted short-term rental accommodation in certain areas. It is understood that an additional use is recommended and the City is supportive of the recommendation, and would also like to thank their department for their continued help with the amendment. So Council in 21 resolved to review key aspects of the City's holiday home framework, which has been in place since 2012, and consisted of scheme provisions, a local planning policy and also a local law. The review included changes to the existing framework, including the potential reintroduction of exclusion areas where unhosted short-term rental accommodation could not be permitted. Significant consultation was undertaken with the community, and with the majority of all participants at the time supporting the reintroduction of exclusion areas, and in particular 2/3 of all submitters who identified as neighbours and community members supportive of the proposed measures. This review was ultimately halted due to the government's announcement of the short stay regulations. And then in 24, the City undertook to review the current local planning policy to align with the changes introduced through the short stay regulations. The LPP sought to introduce proposed non-preferred areas, with these areas largely guided by the work undertaken in the 21 review. The exclusion areas were considered as one way to address issues faced by the community pertaining to conflicts between holiday homes and the amenity of long-term residential dwellings, in particular noise, parking, waste behaviour, safety and security. Retaining a local sense of community, they're focusing on areas with high rates of owner-occupiers, high number of families close to schools, low-cost housing and located further away from the tourist attractions in Busselton. More importantly, aims to secure long-term housing for residents by reducing competition from short-term rentals. Why Busselton? Why should you support an amendment to the scheme to allow Busselton to have areas where unhosted short-term rental accommodation are prohibited? Busselton is unique to any other local government in WA by virtue of the number of unhosted short-term rental accommodations that currently exist within the city. Whilst a review of the local planning policy has been undertaken and adopted, the scale of the problem that exists makes it extremely difficult to control only through a policy. Since adopting the local planning policy, 4 decisions have been subject to review by the State Administrative Tribunal. And during these proceedings, SAT members made it clear to the applicants that because the scheme amendment was seriously entertained, approval for new applications would be unlikely. Had the amendment not been given this level of consideration, and had the city consequently lost an appeal due to the volume of historically approved properties in these areas, it would open the door for a significant increase in similar applications moving forward. So there is approximately 10,000 current STRA registrations within WA, and 1,700 of those are located in Busselton. So 70% of all STRA in the state is within Busselton and Dunsborough region. So what that equates to is essentially approximately 8.8% of all the total housing stock in Busselton and Dunsborough being for unhosted short-term rental accommodation. More specifically, areas such as Dunsborough Lakes or the Cape Rise areas, there is unhosted short-term rental accommodation accounts for almost 11% of the total housing stock in those areas. So in 2025, the city, along with local governments like Byron Bay, Mornington Peninsula, took part in a study by the University of Sydney on behalf of the Australian Coastal Councils on short-term rentals in urban and coastal communities across Australia. The study found that unhosted STRA equated for 8.8% of Busselton's available housing stock compared to the 1.6% national average. Other key comments cited in this paper include that nationally, Byron Bay, Busselton and Bass Coast are leading the proportion of listings in comparison to housing stock.
Joanna and Emma, just to raise, you have gone quite far over the allotted time, and we are very on board with the rationale. But so I might just say, if I could direct you to back to the sort of the key elements before us. Particularly, I note that your deputation does say that records the city as being against the recommendation. If there are reasons that you're against the recommendation, I'd say it would be good to spend time, just the sort of final moments on those reasons.
I'm going to actually advise we weren't actually against the recommendation. Unfortunately, when it was lodged, the person that lodged it against the recommendation. We have been working very closely with the department in terms of the mechanism to control.
Yes,
to
so
unhosted STRA.
Thank you. So that's a key issue. So thank you for that clarification, and you're supportive of the proposed mechanism?
Yes, we are supportive.
Okay, great. All right. Is there anything else you wanted to add before we conclude the deputation and go to questions?
No, that's fine. Thank you, Chair.
All right. Thank you very much for the deputation, Joanna and Emma. That clarification has been very useful. Members, are there any questions of the City of Busselton? Yes, Member Knight, go ahead.
Thank you, through the Chair. Have you considered the impact of this, of the controlled area on the other residential areas? Will it exacerbate the problem in those areas?
We have the areas that were chosen were because of their mainly low-cost housing or closer to schools or further away from the tourism areas. It was trying to address the balance to ensure that we had, Busselton is a tourist town, so we do appreciate that Airbnbs does provide that function for a tourist accommodation. So it was trying to get the balance while ensuring that people had places to live and families had somewhere to live, whilst also providing that key tourism accommodation. But yes, we have acknowledged that it may increase in those other areas.
Member Franklin, thank you.
Thank you. Through the Chair, I just wanted to explore a little further the operation of the existing local planning policy, which obviously will be sort of guiding this provision in the scheme. Will there be an update to the policy as from its current form, bearing in mind the actual prohibition of of this type of development in these special control areas? I'm just trying to get a bit of a handle how you will administer and implement this over time. And has there been a consideration for any locational criterion? You talk about it in regards to servicing and access to schools and so forth, but it wasn't immediately evident through the existing policy that's sort of explicitly stated. Yes, just would like to get further information.
So the local planning policy refers to preferred and non-preferred areas. Yes, we would probably need to align it. If it went through as an additional use, we would probably need to amend the local planning policy to align with the wording. The policy also outlines in terms of numbers of guests and also a number of criteria that were also within our local law that was rescinded. So Busselton have been working on our local law. We worked on it for quite a considerable amount of time. So we have incorporated a huge amount of what we work through with the community into that local planning policy as well. So the bulk of the policy will be as is, but yes, we will need to tweak the wording in terms of the preferred, non-preferred areas.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Herron.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for the deputation. I was curious, the City of Busselton, I can appreciate in terms of the extent of Airbnb activity in that neck of the woods. Has there been any discussion or collaboration? Because you've obviously done some with some other key hotspots. Given the proximity with Margaret River and the benefits of securing, alignment and consistency, has there been any discussion with your adjoining LGA in terms of their approach and, whether there would be benefits in undertaking that?
Yes, we did. In drafting the local planning policy, we did have discussions with Augusta Margaret River. They have had a planning policy that has these areas for quite some time. And main discussions focused around how they deal with time-limited approvals. So Margaret River have gone down the approach of essentially issuing 1, 3 and 5 year time-limited approvals, depending on how the holiday home occupants and the impacts on the neighbours. Margaret River at the moment, I think are watching what happens with the amendment, to be honest. But at the current time, their policy has been held quite firmly since it was introduced. Unfortunately for Busselton, at the very beginning in 2012, we did have preferred and non-preferred areas. And that was removed during believe it was in 2015 that was removed. And since then, which is why we've got to the number of holiday homes that we have. So they are allowed across the board.
Thank you.
Which is why we're trying to strengthen it again.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions for the City of Busselton? Look, thank you. I just want to acknowledge that this has been a big undertaking for the city on what is quite a contentious matter, and I just want to acknowledge the work that you have done in this space, and thank you for working closely with the officers on the mechanism in which to realise this. For the purposes of the minutes, I'm just noting your comments previously. Would you be happy if we amended your verbal deputation to support rather than against? Was that the intention?
Yes, it was in support of the recommendation.
All right.
Apologies.
Thank you. No, thank you. Appreciate that. Well, thank you today for your deputation.
Thanks.
That does conclude our verbal deputations for today. Just noting that in our agenda, we do have 2 written deputations. The first on the same item, City of Busselton's scheme amendment from a community member, Eva Schonfeld, against the recommendation, and or written deputation in relation to item 2.9, the Shire of Murray's local planning scheme amendment from the Large Format Retail Association, also against that recommendation. So that concludes deputations, and we can now move to non-confidential items for decision, of which we have one today, and that is item 3.1, amendments to Montario Quarter Design Guidelines, Shenton Park Hospital redevelopment for approval. And we're joined by officers Dale Sanderson, Ben Hesketh and Tim Richards. Not Ben.
Ben's online.
Ben's online, okay.
Lisa Matthews is also online from the Heritage team as well.
Thank you.
With any questions that might come up.
Dale, thank you, and welcome Ben and Lisa. Do you wish to make any comments, or are you happy to?
Just briefly, if we can. I won't repeat there were a few questions, but I think the main thing I wanted to focus on was heritage. There's some stuff that's not in the report. This is actually the second attempt to get development up on this site. That was previously a concept that proposed to retain more of LG block building and a very large tower. That ultimately, I don't think it even got to a real application. It wasn't supported through pre-consultation between in the department, including GAWA. The current proposal has been supported by the estate architect, government architect and Heritage Council. And importantly, more broadly, when we're considering heritage in the precinct, it's important to note that there's not just the built form that is forming part of retention of heritage. There's other works that are happening that exist in the precinct. There's art on Selby Street, there's the wellness machine, there's just to provide a little bit more additional context.
Thank you, Dale. It's appreciated. Members, questions for the officers? No questions? Okay, thank you very much. I will then seek a mover and seconder for the recommendation. Thank you very much. Moved by Commissioner Brooks and seconded by Commissioner Herron. Any comments? No comments. Commissioner Herron, would you like to make any comments? Not look at trade.
Just to say that I understand the drivers behind the modifications. I think that the underlying intent in terms of the heritage preservation have been appropriately dealt with, and I think that the density modification is quite minor in the context.
Thank you very much. Is there any further comments? Probably just to reiterate, I think whenever we see something like this come before us, we always take a keen eye to the dwelling target and yield that we're seeking to meet. And I think that some points that have been made around this being an R60 site in the context of that 1,100 dwellings that the Montario Quarter is on track to deliver against that has been quite fundamental in the consideration, and I thank the officers for putting that detail into the report, and thank you for outlining the heritage considerations for the retention of part G block. Thank you. Is there any dissent to the recommendation? Thank you very much. That is carried. That just leaves us with dealing with confidential items for the remainder of the meeting. So if I could please have a mover and seconder that we close the meeting to the public to consider those confidential items. Moved by Member Harmon and seconded by Member Knight. Any dissent?